Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting episode of Hello Word. My name is Alex and I am so happy to have you all joining me for this special session of our program. Today we are taking a close look at words that describe people in various stages of life, as well as different types of relationships. We will discuss their definitions, explore how these words appear in daily speech, and discover how they can be used in everyday situations. I know many of you are on a journey to strengthen your English skills, and this episode will help you become more confident in referring to family members, friends, and acquaintances. It is always helpful to have a strong grasp of these basic words and phrases, as they can be used constantly when talking about the people in our lives. Before we begin, let me offer some tips to help you get the most out of this episode. First, I recommend you listen with a notepad at the ready, so you can write down new words, definitions, and examples as we go. That way, you will have something to refer back to later. Second, remember to practice your pronunciation by repeating the words you hear. Finally, be sure to make your own sentences using these words in a context that is meaningful for your life. This helps you feel more comfortable and natural when you speak. Now, let us dive right into our discussion of these essential English words. Baby is a term used for a very young child, usually from birth until they begin to walk or speak. The word baby is often used when talking about a precious new addition to the family or when someone is describing a tiny, adorable infant. In everyday conversation, you might hear phrases such as "that baby is so cute" or "she is taking care of her baby sister today." If you want to use baby in another way, you can say things like "my friend just had a baby to share happy news about at birth." Baby can also be used more playfully in casual settings, like when people address a loved one as baby, though this is more common in affectionate contexts. Child refers to a young person who has not yet reached adolescence. The word child is generally used for kids roughly between the ages of 2 and 12. You might hear parents say, "I have one child in elementary school," or "the child was playing in the park all afternoon." This word is key in everyday conversation if you are talking about young family members or explaining how old a person is. For example, you might say, "My child loves reading bedtime stories," or "she is a curious child who always asks questions." Use child whenever you need to describe that transitional stage between being a baby and becoming a teenager. Man is used to refer to an adult male, typically someone who is grown and no longer a boy. You might hear the word man in conversations about occupations, relationships, or general identity. For example, "he is a kind man who always helps his neighbors," or "that man is very tall and plays basketball." In polite conversation, if you are speaking about someone whose name you do not know, you could say something like "the man in the blue shirt is waiting in line." This is a straightforward and essential word in everyday English, since it identifies an adult male with clarity. Woman is the term we use for an adult female. You often encounter this word when describing a person who is grown and no longer a girl. For instance, "she is a strong woman who advocates for her community," or "that woman is leading the meeting today." Similar to man, you might say "the woman at the bus stop seems lost" if you do not know her name. It is especially helpful to remember that woman is singular, while women is the plural form. So, you would say "I see a woman sitting there" if you are talking about one adult female, but you would use women when referring to more than one. Mr. is a title that is used for men, often placed before the last name or full name of a person. It can be a sign of respect, especially if you are meeting someone for the first time, or if you are in a formal setting. For example, you might say "good morning, Mr. Brown," or "I would like you to meet Mr. Johnson," if you want to show courtesy and professionalism. When writing letters or emails, people often include Mr. before the recipient's last name. It helps maintain a polite tone, especially in business or official communication. Mr. is one of the most common titles you will encounter in English. Mrs., Miss, and MS are titles that are used for women, and each carries a slightly different meaning. Mrs. is traditionally used for a married woman, as in Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Johnson. Miss is commonly used for a single woman, such as Miss Carter or Miss Garcia. MS is often used when you do not wish to specify if a woman is married or single. For example, Miss Thompson is a neutral way to address a woman respectfully, whether she is married or not. Knowing these titles is important for polite introductions, sending letters, or addressing women in formal settings. Boy refers to a young male child, typically one who has not yet reached adulthood. You might hear phrases such as the boy is playing soccer in the yard, or he was just a boy when he first learned to play the piano. Parents and teachers often use boy and girl to speak about children in a clear, straightforward way. In everyday contexts, it can also be used in casual discussions, as in that boy loves to draw pictures or I saw a boy at the park feeding the ducks. Whenever you want to mention a male in his early years, boy is the perfect choice. Girl is used when referring to a young female child, typically one who has not yet reached adulthood. You might say the girl is having a birthday party or that girl is very good at math. Just like boy, you will hear girl often in families, schools, and among friends. If someone is telling a story about their childhood, they might say, when I was a girl, I loved to read fantasy books. This word is fundamental because it quickly identifies a female who is still in her younger stages of life, before she becomes a woman. Adolescent is used to describe someone who is in their teenage years, transitioning from childhood to adulthood. This term often applies to someone around 13 to 19 years old. You might hear statements such as during adolescent years, people go through many changes, or he is an adolescent who is still figuring out what he wants to do in life. In casual conversation, some people might use teenager instead of adolescent, although adolescent sounds a bit more formal. If you are discussing a person in that in-between stage, you can say she is an adolescent who enjoys music and hanging out with friends. Twins refers to two siblings who were born at the same time and share the same birth date. This word is handy if you want to quickly explain that two children or two people in the family arrive together. You could say my neighbors have twins and they look exactly alike, or we have a pair of twins in our class and they both love sports. While some twins look very similar, not all of them are identical, and you may see the word fraternal used for twins who do not look exactly alike. If you come across twins in everyday conversation, you might say those twins always dress in matching outfits. Friends are people who share a bond of mutual affection and trust. A friend is someone you can rely on, spend time with, and with whom you enjoy common interests. You might say I am meeting my friends for lunch, or my friend and I go to the gym together. The word friends is crucial in everyday English since we often talk about the people who support us. For instance, you can say my friends helped me move to my new apartment, or she has many friends from her art club. Use this word anytime you speak about the people you enjoy being around. Acquaintance is used when you know someone but not very closely. An acquaintance is not exactly a friend, yet they are more than a complete stranger. For instance, you might say I know him as an acquaintance, but we have not talked much, or we used to work in the same office, but we were just acquaintances. This term comes in handy when you want to describe a relationship that lacks the closeness or depth of friendship. In daily life, you can describe new people you have met a few times as acquaintances, especially if you have not formed a strong personal bond yet. Couple refers to two people in a romantic relationship or simply two people who are paired together in some way. For example, you might say they are a happy couple who just moved to the neighborhood, or that couple has been married for many years. Often, the term couple is used when discussing partners or spouses. In casual conversation, you may say my sister and her partner are the cutest couple. Sometimes, couple is also used in a non-romantic way, as in they make a great couple of friends for traveling, but typically, it implies a romantic connection. Girlfriend is a term that describes a female partner in a romantic relationship. It can be used when you are talking about someone who is dating or in a committed relationship. For example, you might say my girlfriend and I are celebrating our anniversary, or his girlfriend is coming over for dinner tonight. It is a straightforward word and is used often in casual speech to identify a romantic partner who is female. You can also use it in a question like, "Have you met his girlfriend yet?" This term helps clarify that the person in question is more than just a friend. Boyfriend refers to a male partner in a romantic relationship. You would say something like, "My boyfriend and I went to the movies yesterday," or "She introduced her boyfriend to the whole family." Similar to girlfriend, this word is very common in conversation and can clarify the nature of the relationship. If you are speaking about someone else, you might ask, "Do you know her boyfriend?" In short, use boyfriend whenever you need to specify that a male person is in a romantic partnership that is usually not yet described as marriage or a long-term relationship like a fiancé or spouse. Adult is a word used to identify someone who has reached full growth or maturity, legally recognized in most places as someone over the age of 18. You might hear someone say you are an adult now, so you have more responsibilities, or adults need to make sure they handle their finances responsibly. In daily conversation, this term helps draw a line between minors and those who are considered mature in legal and social contexts. If you want to reference adult responsibilities, you could say adult life includes paying bills and working a full-time job. This distinction is often important when talking about rules, privileges, or legal requirements. Brother is a male sibling, someone who shares one or both parents with you. You might say, "My brother is 3 years older than me," or "I called my brother last night to catch up on family news." Brother is a term that often evokes a sense of familial connection and can be used in everyday conversations about family, childhood, or upbringing. Some people might say, "He is like a brother to me," even if they are not actually related, indicating a deep bond. When you need to identify or talk about a male sibling, brother is the best word to use. Sister is a female sibling, someone who shares one or both parents with you. For instance, "My sister is a brilliant doctor," or "My sister and I love going shopping together." Similar to brother, sister can also be used figuratively, as in "She is like a sister to me," when you feel a very close connection with a friend or someone you see as family. This word shows up frequently in discussions about siblings or personal relationships, so if you're describing your family, you might say, "I have one sister who is younger than me," or "My 2 sisters and I like to travel together." Grandfather is used to refer to the father of your father or mother. He is part of the older generation in the family. If you want to show respect and affection, you might say, "My grandfather tells fascinating stories about the past." In daily conversation, you could mention, "I am visiting my grandfather this weekend to help him with some chores," or "My grandfather is in his 80s, but still loves to dance." Grandfather can also be shortened to grandpa in casual speech, but grandfather is the more formal, complete term. Whenever you need to specifically identify your parent's father, this is the word to use. Grandmother is the mother of your father or mother, another key figure in many families. You might say, "My grandmother taught me how to cook my favorite recipes," or "I always look forward to visiting my grandmother during the holidays." Some people call their grandmother grandma or granny, but grandmother remains the formal or more complete version. Grandmother often appears in everyday speech when people share family stories or talk about traditions, as in, "My grandmother immigrated from another country many years ago." If you want to emphasize her role and generation, grandmother is the best term to use. Mother is the woman who gave birth to you or who raised you as her child. In many families, mother is an honored figure, which is reflected in how you might say, "My mother is the most caring person I know." You can also say mother when you are introducing your mom formally, as in this is my mother, Linda. Some casual versions of this word are mom or mama, but mother is the standard form. You might also use mother when you want to emphasize a nurturing or guiding relationship, like she is a mother figure to many children in her community. Father is the man who is your parent, the male figure who raised you or contributed to your upbringing. If you are introducing him formally, you might say this is my father, Robert. When talking to close friends, you might casually say my dad. Father is a word you will hear frequently in discussions about family life, traditions, or personal history. For instance, my father taught me to ride a bike, or I admire my father for his dedication to our family. If you would like to use a more affectionate term, you could say dad or papa, but father is always correct in formal or neutral contexts. Parents refers to both your mother and father, or the caregivers who raised you. You can say my parents live in another city, or I love spending weekends with my parents. This word is particularly common when talking about family structure or childhood experiences, such as my parents always encouraged me to pursue my interests. It can also refer to guardians who fill the role of mother and father. For example, you might say my adoptive parents were always supportive. Parents is a helpful way to collectively reference both the mother and father without having to say them separately. Uncle and aunt are the siblings of your parents, meaning your father's or mother's brother or sister. Your uncle is the brother of your mother or father, and your aunt is the sister of your mother or father. You might say my uncle is funny and tells the best jokes, or my aunt helped me choose a college. These words also apply to people who are married to your mother's or father's siblings, though they are not directly blood-related. For instance, if your mother's sister is married, you might call her partner your uncle. In everyday speech, these family terms are vital for describing your extended family members. Neighbor refers to someone who lives next door or near you. You might say my neighbor and I share a garden fence, or our neighbors have a friendly dog we play with sometimes. It is a useful word when you want to talk about the people who live in your immediate residential area, whether in a house, an apartment, or any other dwelling. If you are describing a helpful person next door, you could say my neighbor always brings in my mail when I am out of town. People often form bonds with their neighbors, so this word comes up frequently in everyday conversation. We have covered a range of words that are all about family members, relationships, and the people we interact with in our daily lives. From baby to neighbor, each term plays a role in helping you describe and identify the individuals who make up our world, whether they are blood relatives, romantic partners, or the friendly folks living next door. I encourage you to practice these words in your own sentences and conversations. If you have children, try describing your family members aloud to help them become familiar with these terms. Or, if you are learning English on your own, take a moment each day to talk about the people in your neighborhood and your community. By speaking these words in full sentences, you will build both your confidence and your fluency. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Hello Word, and I hope you found these explanations helpful. Please do not forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode filled with useful tips, interesting discussions, and engaging lessons. I would also love to hear from you, so leave a review and share your thoughts. Your feedback helps me continue creating content that supports your language learning journey, and I appreciate every message you send my way. I look forward to our next time together, and until then, keep practicing, stay curious, and remember that every word you learn is a step toward becoming a more confident English speaker.